Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Cassie, for putting this on. Thank you, everyone at Microsoft. Thank you, listeners. I'm saying thank you to as many people as possible right now. My name's PJ. I'm going to start this a little differently than maybe other speeches have started. So I want you to imagine that you're walking through a forest. You haven't walked through this particular trail in this forest before, but you've shown up, you're right at the trailhead, and it's a beautiful day. The sun is like dappling through, the light is playing off of the leaves, and you just feel surrounded by the beauty of nature. You're walking through, the path is really wide, easy to follow, and you're just enjoying yourself. And as you're walking, you find you don't even have to look at the path anymore. It's not treacherous, there's no danger. And you're just enjoying the surroundings and seeing all the cool stuff that's around you. Well, while you're walking, at one point you do look down. You realize you're not on the path anymore. You are lost. The path is totally gone. You're standing surrounded by brush and tall trees, and just you're not familiar with this area. And now you're a little worried. You're probably scared. You're probably nervous. Most of all, you're probably wondering, how did I get here? How did I get to this part? And so when you're lost and when you don't know where to go, what do you have to do? Well, you have to find the path again. So you start spinning around, trying to figure out where you came from, right? And you see it off in the distance. Way off in the distance, you see the path. You see a familiar area of this forest. So you slowly make your way back. You're stepping over branches, and slowly you get back and you find the path, but it's not nearly as wide as you remembered it. It's a little more narrow. It's a little less worn. There's not as many people that have been through this part of the path. At the beginning, it was wide open, easy. There was no way to get lost. But here, you have to be more careful. You have to know exactly where you're putting your foot to make sure you stay on the path. Hi, my name's PJ Metz, and I'm here to talk to you about confusion. Now, I'm making my way into the tech industry. Right now, I'm a high school English teacher in Orlando. And for about the last 5 months, I've been learning to code in C# with a brief detour into JavaScript and then back again to C#. I haven't done much. I don't have a tech job yet. I'm like a lot of you. I'm learning for the first time. A lot of the talks today that I watched on the beginning of the day were a little hard to understand, some of the stuff that, some of the more technical aspects, what the speaker was talking about. So I am in the trenches with all of you, and I understand that we're all going to be a little confused sometimes. They're like, well, this person's talking about Node, and this person's talking about Xamarin, and this person's talking about, and it's terms we don't know. So we might be a little confused. Now, when we get confused, we might start to feel a little frustrated. We might be a little angry, and we might be a little ashamed that we're confused. And I'm here to tell you that that's totally normal. When you're confused, it makes sense that you feel that way. And more importantly, that confusion that you feel is one of the most important parts of learning something new. You have to be confused in order to learn something new. And that is a hard thing for a lot of people to learn. Normally, when we get confused, we believe it's because we're not capable. We believe we're confused because we just can't do it. And so we're a little more likely to give up when we encounter that confusion. And today I'm here to talk to you about why you shouldn't do that. We need to redefine the way we're thinking about confusion in order to maximize the benefits we get from it. So first, let's talk about our sweaty journey. Confusion is the sweat of learning, right? First, we're going to talk about why we're confused. We're going to talk about why we need it. And finally, it's how do we move through it? How do we get to the part where we're confused and then end up on the other side of it where we actually understand? So, as is totally normal for a high school English teacher learning to code, let's talk about neurons. So the way the brain works is there's these bunch of little pieces inside the brain that are called neurons. And when neurons are activated, it's called firing. So when a neuron fires, that's the brain doing something. Perhaps you've heard of someone saying, this part of your brain lights up. That's the neurons activating. So when neurons activate, that's your brain thinking or processing or being used in some way. So what researchers and what I understand from reading the literature on it, when neurons fire together, that means they're related, and that means that they're connected in some way. So the part of your brain that deals with math lights up, and the part of your brain that deals with the good feelings lights up. When you feel math, you get the good chemicals and you feel good. When these neurons fire together, that's the process of learning, because oftentimes they fire differently, right? They're doing their own thing. But when you're learning a new concept, it's about making them fire together. So this is actually why analogies work so well. An analogy is taking something unfamiliar and putting it in familiar terms. This is why people use analogies so often when teaching, because you're trying to get the part of the brain that understands an idea or concept and apply a new concept to that. So the title of this talk comes from our article called Telling You the Answer Isn't the Answer, and it's by a man named Rhett Allain, and it was in Wired magazine way back in 2013. At the time, I was teaching at a public high school in Melbourne, Florida, in the United States, and I taught a wide variety of classes, a class of kids that were trying to learn just note-taking skills and organizational skills. I taught regular English. I taught a mass media course about analyzing movies and film and music. And as soon as I read this article, I immediately took that tagline, "Confusion is the sweat of learning," and I put it up on the board for every class. Here's the concept. When you are working out, physically working out, or going for a run, or riding a bike, or playing volleyball, or throwing a frisbee for an extended period of time, if you're doing this outside, you kind of expect to get sweaty. You would never be lifting weights or running on a treadmill or riding a bike and go, wait, what's happening? I should stop. I'm getting wet. No, we expect it. This analogy says that when you're learning something new, confusion is to be expected. Confusion doesn't mean stop. Confusion doesn't mean you're not cut out for it. If you were running and going for a jog and you started to sweat and you go, well, I guess this just means I shouldn't jog. That's not how it works. You know you're going to get sweaty. Well, for learning, start knowing that you're going to get confused. In fact, with working out and sweating, I actually tend to measure how hard I work with how sweaty I get. So if I go and do a workout and I come out totally drenched, I'm like, that was a good workout. But if I don't sweat at all, I feel like I didn't really do much. The same is true for learning. If you automatically get the concept, it's likely you already knew it. You need to challenge yourself. In the vein of, I know I'm going to get very sweaty when working out. This is the type of shirt I need. When you sweat, the message "you can go home now" appears. So I'll know I've worked out enough when I can read that, and then I can finally go home and drink a big glass of water. So you know the workout's going to be hard. You know it's going to be difficult, but we still have these negative feelings associated with confusion, and a lot of that is because of school. School is really the first place we encounter totally new and different concepts. And the way that school is designed, especially here in the United States, it doesn't value confusion. It doesn't value question asking. It doesn't value not knowing the answer. Oftentimes in school, all that matters is getting the answer, right? So a lot of ways that a lot of classrooms work is the teacher has the information. They stand at the front, they say, I know the answers. And the students go, that's right, you know the answers. The teacher gives the students the answers. Here's what you need to know. Then the students say, write it down in notes. And then later they tell the teacher the answer without the notes. And the teacher goes, very good, you have knowledge. But in that process, if a student gets confused, they're often left behind. Topics are not given time to breathe and not given time to be dove into. Topics often just move real fast. And so we don't value that confusion. When we get confused, since we get left behind, since we get lower grades when we tend to be confused, since we start to feel bad, we start to associate feeling bad and negativity and sort of stress and sadness and feeling stupid with confusion. And so we tend to avoid it later in life. In fact, there was a study at a university here in the Southeast United States that asked students what makes them more likely and less likely to ask for help. And they said that what would make them less likely is if it will make them feel stupid or they won't know what to ask. And of course, asking for help is going to make you feel a little dumb. If knowing the answer is the only way to feel smart, according to the way we go to school, when you don't know the answer, you feel dumb. You can feel this even if you do like trivia, like very minor trivia. When you don't know the answer, you start to get upset, especially if you think you should know the answer, right? So there's a lot of negativity and shame associated with being confused. And so much of that stems from school. So the first step really is overcoming the bad feelings and understanding that when you're confused, that's fine. It's totally normal, right? You're going to be confused. I'm confused all the time. I'm confused right now. I hope that everyone's hearing me, right? Like that's how I'm confused right now, but I got to keep going. So that's why we're confused. Let's talk about why we need it. Malcolm Gladwell, who's just a great author right now, he has some good podcasts. He wrote a book called Outliers, The Story of Success, and it's about what makes people successful. And one of the things he talks about is anyone can become an expert in any field or skill with 10,000 hours of work on that skill or in that field. Now, 10,000 hours is a lot of time. That's about 12 to 15 years of working full time in order to become good at something. Now, this is true for music. This is true for sports. This is true for any skill in life. If you put 10,000 hours in, you're an expert. Now, this is not 10,000 hours of understanding the concepts that apply to the skill. It's 10,000 hours of work. I'm reminded of a video of a famous, I believe they are a cello player, who posted a video of her practice session where she was practicing playing some scales and playing a song, and she couldn't get a part. And every time she got to that part, she would get frustrated and she would go back and try again and try again. And she kept messing up and she started crying. And she had this very deep emotional reaction to that failure. But then she sort of cried, wiped her eyes, and then went back at it again. That counts towards your 10,000 hours. The failures count. The failures are part of that. This is so comforting to me that all you need is time. There are, of course, barriers to finding that time, but if all you need is time, then put in the time. Be confused during it. It's not about being great every single time. Anyone who's good at anything will tell you they are terrible at some point in the process. So it's important to recognize that. I am, like I said before, I'm constantly confused, and you can actually watch this confusion live on Twitch on Sunday mornings at 11 Eastern Standard Time. That's me. I had a phase during quarantine where I thought a mustache was going to be an awesome idea, and my wife did not agree. And now that I look back on that picture, I think she may have been right. But if anyone thinks I'm actually looking good with a mustache, go ahead and let me know in the chat, and maybe I'll grow it out again. So here I am being confused on Twitch. This is actually some JavaScript, and there's a couple streams where I was so frustrated. And I only have sometimes one person watching my stream or 4 people watching my stream. But once in a while, some developers have come in and they've watched, and they're very smart about the way they help. I might be stuck on something. I'll be constantly getting errors. I'll be constantly messing up and not knowing where to go to fix things. And the developers, instead of saying, hey, you forgot to declare the variable correctly in this line, or hey, your logic is messed up on this line, they go, well, what do you think is going wrong? They ask me questions. what's that error really say? Have you Googled that error? What line is it pointing to? Is that line wrong, or is there a reference to that line that's wrong? And they ask me questions and guide me to the answer, and I find it myself. And this is important because I'm building a path in my brain of neurons. That path is going to help the neurons fire at the same time. And it is a physical process. The neurons move, these arms that they have move and shift and change to reach other spaces. So you need to create that path from neuron to neuron yourself. Because if they just tell me the answer, you forgot a semicolon on line 13, then I don't learn and move my neurons into position to figure things out myself. That path makes learning easier. The first time you shift those neurons into place, it's really difficult. The next time, you've already got a path there that makes future learning easier. This is why if you talk to all these developers that have been talking all day today, they find it easier to go and learn a second, third, fourth programming language. They put in the time with their first language to learn the things that help them understand. Once they have that understanding, it's about applying that understanding to something new. This is why if you're bilingual, you can actually learn another language more easily than someone trying to learn a second language, right? Someone who speaks Spanish and English would learn French more easily than someone who only speaks English or only speaks Spanish trying to learn French. Your brain has already adjusted. So it's totally okay to be frustrated. It's normal. It's important even. That's your brain shifting and changing. That's the work, right? Doing bicep curls is hard, but it makes the muscle stronger. Being confused is hard, but it makes your brain stronger. So you can start out like this person and you can do, why isn't this working? I literally copy pasted the code. How could it be broken? And then you go, okay. I get it. And that feeling, oh my gosh, that feeling of finally getting it, and especially when you get it on your own, it is euphoric. A few developers today have talked about how good it feels when something goes right. I think that like Seth and Donna were talking about it earlier this afternoon. There's some days where you want to be under a rock and collect moss for a living. And there's other days where you're like, I'm literally the best developer in this office. Where's my $1 billion? Give me more stock. Come on, be serious. I'm the best here. And then 2 hours later, you're like, nope, I was wrong. I need to increase my moss collection. They're going to fire me tomorrow. Everyone is feeling that same imposter syndrome. Everyone is worried that they're not good enough because your brain's a little confused. So knowing this ahead of time makes it easier to deal with. This is a post from the Sassy Scientist on Instagram. I really recommend you follow. This growth chart is true not just for learning, but for mental health, for physical, like if you have a physical disability or you have an accident and it reduces your mobility, that physical, what's the word? Like the physical training that you have to go through to get that back. It's hard. All of this is hard. And that first success is, I got this. And then a failure. Oh, I don't got this. And then you figure it out. And then look at that huge drop. That huge drop feels terrible. And it hurts. And you need to know that it might hurt a little. But knowing it ahead of time and knowing that you're going to get better if you keep going will help you get out of that. I need you to notice that the what's the point down here, as I point to my screen that you guys can't see, the what's the point, that's higher than where you started at the very, very beginning. You're still moving up. And by the end, you're going to be higher. It's got ups and downs. There's successes and failures. But knowing that your confusion is a normal part of it and that everyone has been confused. Bill Gates has been confused, right? Every developer that's presented today and is going to present tomorrow has been confused and come up on something that they just didn't know what to do. It's about leveraging that and making it work for you. So how do we move through it? Well, what's the last thing that you do understand? Right? If you're using GitHub like they talked about earlier and something breaks, you go, well, that's bad. And you just go back to what worked before. Or like Donna said, go back to where there were less errors, right? It's normal. Just go back. It's not backtracking. It's looking for where things went the wrong way. And that's normal and that's good. It's good practice. I think several people have talked about rubber ducking today. Explain it to someone, explain it to the rubber duck, explain it to yourself. Teach yourself. The best way to learn is to teach. So if you start teaching yourself or teaching a friend what's going on, you might find where you got confused. And this isn't just advice for right now. We're all going to be confused right now. When I got to methods in C#, I think it took me weeks to finally understand it. And by weeks, I mean I just figured it out last month. When my friend said, so let's try and write a method. And I did it. And I went, oh, it worked. And he was like, yeah, dude, it's okay. And like, he was like, that's cool that you understand it, but it's also a very basic thing. But I was celebrating, I was into it. But this isn't just advice for now. Throughout your career, you will hit confusion. And it's going to feel the same almost every time. So when you get to that part that's confusing, say, well, what worked last? And go back to it. Next is to understand that confusion is negative. Don't avoid it just because it's negative. We have a tendency that I've seen in a lot of my friends and a lot of people in a lot of society to try and say, well, that's a negative feeling. Let's push that away and let's just feel good. Overcoming negative emotions is not about getting rid of negative emotions. It's about processing them correctly and giving them time to be felt, and knowing that at the end of it, there will be better feelings. It's hard when you're in the middle of being upset or sad or confused to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you have to remind yourself, this isn't permanent. I'm not going to be confused forever. So it's about understanding it's negative, it's bad, but don't let anyone tell you, hey, don't feel bad. Say, no, I'm going to feel bad, but I'm going to feel better later. If you just put aside the feeling bad, it's still there. It just sits around and it can grow. But if you deal with it, it dissipates naturally and you let yourself experience those emotions. Last thing is building resilience. Resilience is the only thing that defines success. Resilience leads to 10,000 hours. If you put in 1,000 hours and stop, of course it didn't work out. You stopped. If you keep going, that's where you find success. Every day I read tweets from Danny Thompson and I'm like, yes, like this is the little bit of spark that I needed today. I needed to remember that I have to keep going, that I have to keep moving. Even if the progress isn't going all the way up, even if there's a dip, even if there's a part where I fail, I just have to get up, dust myself off, and take another step. Go back to the code. Go back to the basics. Take a break and come back. I spent a lot of time thinking that I wasn't capable of doing any of this. Throughout college and high school, I thought I wasn't going to be able to be a developer. I just always thought that's for math brains. I thought math brains was a thing. And I have friends that are engineers, that are developers. I have friends that are senior developers. I have friends that are working in computers. And I was just always like, yeah, because they get it and they're good at it. And that's unfair to them and unfair to me. It's unfair to them to write off their success as, oh, they're naturally good. They worked hard. It's unfair to me because I'm setting myself up for failure before I even start. I believed all the way until May of this year that I couldn't be good at coding. I just believed that it took a natural ability. And I learned that it's not. I made this website. I used ASP.NET Core and I made a website. I just added a database to it with the help of a friend. It works. It took a lot of hours and a lot of not knowing what was happening, but it works. I made a Twitter bot with a friend that retweets Shania Twain lyrics. It's Shania bot, and every day it tweets, "Let's go, girls." And sometimes that honestly really motivates me. It feels good. But the whole time I've done these things, these successes, I've just been confused the whole time. And it took a lot of adjustment to make that make sense. And I'm very happy that I kept going, because for a lot of my life, I really convinced myself that I just couldn't. And whenever I got confused, I quit. And I regret not getting into this sooner and giving up on myself as many times as I did. But it doesn't matter how many times you fail. It matters how many times you get up after that failure and keep going. So the next time I fail and the next time I'm confused, which again will probably be 11 o'clock on Twitch on Sunday, I'm going to keep going, and I'm just going to keep pushing through until it does make sense. I used Microsoft.com to learn TV. I used that to get started actually with coding. I've been fortunate enough to be on a great show with Chloe Condon and Brandon Minnick, who was in the chat earlier. And they have a show on Learn TV that also streams on Twitch. You can actually see them on the right side, the twitch.tv/Microsoft Developer, which hopefully you're on right now watching us. These are great places to get starting ideas, and then you just got to take it and run with it. I'm doing this Cloud Skills Challenge. I was hoping to be the first, but I got a little distracted today and didn't get to finish it. I'm still going to try and be like one of the first to finish it as much as I can. I need that certification. That's very important to me. Lastly, thank you so much. I feel so fortunate and blessed and happy to be a part of this event that's helping people just like me. If I wasn't speaking at it, I would have been at it all day anyway. But once again, I'm PJ Metz. You can find me on Twitter at MetzandAround. I have a website with a link to a bunch of stuff, MetzandAround.com. And finally, on twitch.tv/MetzandAround. I'm going to be in the Twitch chat for the next 30 minutes. If you want to send me a chat on there and ask me any questions, if you want to just chat, if you want to just say, hey, I found a typo in your presentation, whatever, I'm around for it. And once again, thank you so much. You'll see me again at the panel at 4:30 talking about career changes. So thank you very much. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, morning, wherever you are. Thank you.